Diablo IV launches officially on June 6th, but those who have pre-ordered the Digital Deluxe Edition or Digital Ultimate Edition can already start playing it as of June 1st. Now, I've made this video to make sure you get the most out of Diablo IV in your home theater, and thankfully, it's not that hard. So starting with the HDR settings, if you're on the Xbox Series X or PS5, Diablo IV does not use the HDR system level calibration on either platform. Now this means that the adjustments you make or have made on the HDR calibration screen on either the Series X or PS5 will have no effect on the game's HDR output. All of that will be controlled in the game's menu. Now before adjusting anything in the game's menu, I do highly recommend making sure your actual TV or display settings are correct first. On LG OLEDs or other displays that support HDIG, I recommend switching it over to that mode for this game. Now this essentially removes any HDR tone mapping from the display and lets the game handle that. On the calibration screen in Diablo IV, you have three separate options to adjust: black point, brightness, and white point. Now starting at the top, I recommend leaving the black point at the default setting. Now raising this will raise the overall black point of the image and make everything look more washed out. And outside of some weird or rare cases where you might run into issues with your display and need to adjust this, the default setting here is the correct one. For brightness, the starting value of 250 is a great starting point, and if you play in either a completely dark room or a dimly lit room, then this setting should be fine at the default of 250. Now, if you play in a brightly lit room with lots of lights on, then you may need to raise this value to something a bit higher to account for that. And in all honesty, this is totally up to you, and it does come down to personal preference. The white point setting represents the maximum peak brightness your display can produce when in HDR mode. So for my own LG C1, which I've calibrated and measured myself and has a maximum peak brightness between 780 nits and 800 nits, I'll set the white point here to 800. Now, if I was playing the game on the Hisense U7H we have in our living room, which has a rated maximum peak brightness of 1000 nits, well, I'd set the value here to 1000. Now, obviously, there's no way I could cover each and every display's maximum peak brightness in this video, so I'll leave a link in the description to the review index for rtings.com. After you click on the link, scroll through to find your display model on the list and select it, then scroll down to HDR brightness in game mode. Here, look for the peak 10% window number, and that will give you a pretty good number to start with and put in. Now, don't sweat it if you round up a bit or can't get it completely where it needs to be, as you more than likely would be hard pressed to tell a huge difference between 756 and 800, for example. Now, dialing in those settings can get things looking great, but unfortunately, Diablo IV suffers from slightly raised black levels even with everything dialed in properly. Now, depending on how bright the room is that you play the game in, this will either be an issue for you or something you won't even notice. Now, if you do notice it though, there are a couple of ways to fix it. For those with LG OLEDs, you can use the fine-tune dark area setting in the game optimizer menu to drop the brightness near black down a bit. Though keep in mind that you'll need to have variable refresh rate or VRR enabled on the console or PC for this setting to show up. I found a setting of around -8 fixed the issue for me on my LG C1 OLED, but feel free to adjust it to personal taste for your situation. Now, if you don't have an LG OLED, then another option would be to drop the brightness in the TV's menu down a click at a time until the issue goes away. For me, I landed on around 47 in my brightness setting. Now, this isn't the most ideal way to fix the issue though, as it will result in losing detail in a lot of the darker areas in the game, and since many of the areas in the game can already be quite dark, it might make things worse in those areas, so try it at your own risk. Now, in terms of audio settings, there aren't a ton of options in the game, so I'll try to keep this quick. The standard default setting in the game can be left alone here as long as everything is set up correctly in the console or PC's system settings. So on the Series X, for example, you can set it to 5.1 uncompressed PCM in the system settings, and that's exactly what you'll get with both options set to default in Diablo 4's sound settings menu. This applies to the PlayStation 5 and PC as well. Diablo 4 also supports spatial audio on all platforms, which also means the game supports Dolby Atmos as well on both the Xbox Series consoles and PC. Though keep in mind here, you will need the Dolby Access app on the Xbox or PC to enable Dolby Atmos. Now, the app itself is free for home theater use, but if you want to use Dolby Atmos for headphones, then you're going to have to pay for it. To enable Dolby Atmos in the game, all you have to do is, after you've downloaded the Dolby Access app and configured that, go into the system settings on the Xbox, into the sound settings, and just switch it over to Dolby Atmos for home theater, and leave the in-game settings at default. There's no need to change anything else there. For PS5 users, the game only supports spatial audio through headphones and TV speakers using Sony's own 3D audio tech. So those of us playing the game on a PS5 through a home theater system, well, we're shit out of luck here, and we're limited to 7.1 channels, linear PCM at a maximum. However, though, if you are playing the game with headphones or TV speakers on the PS5, all you have to do is make sure that these settings are enabled and set up and configured properly in the PS5 system menu, then you're good to go. Just like with the Xbox, you can leave the sound settings in the game at default. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, feel free to hit that like button and let me know down in the comment section below. Also, have you been looking forward to Diablo 4 and can't wait to sink all your free time into the game and never see your family again? Well, I'm right there with you and I want to hear about that too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.